Hiya, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. I got this stamp set here called Peony Bloom in from scrapbook.com a little while ago. Now this is an acrylic stamp set, so it's quite affordable, but I love this big peony bloom down the bottom, and that's the one that I wanted to use today. Now when I choose to spend money on stamp sets, I really want to make the most of them, so I often use them over and over and over and over again. So when I look at a stamp set, that's what I want to know. Can I use it in lots of different ways? And a big bloom like this is definitely one of those ones that I felt I could use again and again without it looking like the same thing over and over. So I'm going to start off today by using it anyway. Making a start is always a good place. So I am going to emboss this on a piece of watercolor cardstock. Now the watercolor cardstock I use is the Holtz watercolor cardstock, but I'm sure almost any cardstock would be just fine. I am going to use some VersaMark ink, which is just a sticky embossing ink. There is also lots of those out on the market, and I'm using some white embossing powder to emboss these flowers today. And once I have done 2 of these panels, because I know that I need 2 flowers, I was actually hoping that they would fit on the one piece of paper, but they don't quite, so I'm not worried. I keep all of my scraps. I have a little pile of the watercolor paper scraps, so that doesn't matter to me at all. The colors I'm going to be using today are Spiced Marmalade, Wild Honey, and Abandoned Coral. So you can see that they are kind of oranges, and the Abandoned Coral is like a reddy orange, I guess. Now I actually do have the Reinkers in these colors, so just because it's nice and handy, I'll be using those. I'm also going to use some Perfect Pearls in the Perfect Pearl color. This is kind of the base plain color, and this is the only Perfect Pearl that I have, and I have had this for years and years and years and it is still full. So I just got a little bit out using a palette knife, just a tiny wee bit is heaps. And I'm just putting down maybe 2 drops of each one of those Reinkers down onto a couple of acrylic blocks there. You could use any non-stick sheet or anything plastic to pop down your little colors onto. And then I'm using a water brush to make sure that the surface is really, really wet of that peony bloom. And then I'm going to drop the really concentrated color into the center of the flower, and then use what's left in my water brush to go around the outside. So this again involves no skill. I don't have skill when it comes to watercoloring, and often just how things end up is how it will be with me. So I'm just going around this flower and dropping in plenty of water. I do really like the fact that there's some lighter and darker spots, and I actually only end up using the Spiced Marmalade Distress Oxide color. Now again, if you don't have the oxides, use anything going. Use absolutely anything you have and whatever you feel most comfortable in coloring with. I just knew that I wanted a really nice bright orange for my flowers today. I did not waste the ink from the other 2 colors because my daughter came in after me and she had stamped and embossed her own flowers and had a whole lot of fun. So I wasn't worried about that at all. But for today, I pretty much just used that Spiced Marmalade. So this is the second flower that I'm coming in and quickly doing using exactly the same technique. And then whilst I put that aside to dry, I am going to work on my card front. So my card front is also going to be made out of the watercolor cardstock, and I'm just using the leaves in that set, and I have those on an acrylic block, but I'm using the plastic that comes with the stamp set to line up where I'm going to want these, because I'm actually stamping on what will be my card front. I won't be cutting these out or doing anything with them. This is where it'll be, so I'm just using that piece of plastic to line them up, and then that way I know that they're going to be roughly in the right place. Again, I just used my sticky embossing ink, and I'm going to pour over exactly the same white embossing powder so that it will all match up and coordinate. I'm going to melt these with my heat tool, and then for this set of leaves I want to use Hickory Smoke, and I'm also going to use a little bit of black soot. Now I'm just adding in the exact same little bit of Perfect Pearls because this will give them all a nice wee shimmer at the end, and that was a little bit of black soot that I just popped down right then. But I am doing exactly the same technique, dropping water into the little wells that are made by the embossing powder, and then I'm going to pick up some of the color. Now for this one I am going to do a couple of layers because the bottom layer is mainly going to be this kind of light grey color, but I did want them to be a really intense kind of grey. I wanted the orange and the grey to really pop off of each other because they were the main feature of this card. So again, just because I'm using the Oxides, that is definitely not what you have to use. If you're more comfortable using some water-soluble crayons, like distress crayons or something, or maybe watercolor pencils, or some watercolor markers, or anything at all that you feel comfortable coloring with, then go for gold. But I've mentioned it in previous videos that this is just one of the medias that I love working with, and it's kind of what I've chosen to invest in. And I guess it's one of the medias that I feel most comfortable using. I did actually get the back of this panel here. You can just see to the left hand side I got some orange on the back there, but I will cut that off later. You can barely see it just down the left hand side there. I'm using some of the leftover ink to do some splatters, and then I'm going to dry this layer of grey. Now this is where I was looking at it and I knew it wasn't dark enough for what I wanted, because I want it really to stand out on the page. So I came in with a little bit of the black soot and put it near the base of all the leaves. Once I had dropped the colour in, I then came back and just blended it out just a little bit into the end of the leaves. So then I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom left hand corner. And although the shimmer from the Perfect Pearls is not very easy to see at the moment when the media is all wet, in a moment when I tilt the card into the light, you'll really be able to pick up on the shimmer there. So you can see it much better there, and even better when it dries properly. Here are the two panels that I did earlier on. They are still a little bit wet, so I don't have any more time to wait, so I'm going to dry them with my heat tool. You could definitely let them dry by themselves, that would also work just fine. And again, the same thing here. Once these are dry, you can see the really nice shimmer that is left from the Perfect Pearls. Now, before I go too much further on the card, I want to pop my sentiment on, and it's going to be the Especially For You, because I feel like this sentiment covers lots of occasions. So this is definitely one I come back to time and time again. This is a really old stamp set, but I will try and link it below in case you're interested. I'm just going to stamp it in some VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which is just a really nice dark black pigment ink that I really like stamping sentiment stamps for. While I'm at it, I'm going to do my old trick again with the Hickory Smoke. I have a little thin piece of masking tape, which I'm just eyeballing to try and get a tiny little border there, and that way it kind of frames up my card really nicely. So if I run that around all four edges, it saves me actually adding a proper matted layer of separate cardstock. Now while I'm at it here, I did think that I had the grey splatters in there, and I wanted to bring the orange in as well because that was my colour, so I wanted to keep it kind of all cohesive with the colours from the card that I was using. So I just added a couple of orange splatters there, and although they are not very obvious, they definitely do make a difference, and you can kind of see them a little bit when I lift up the card there. Now it's kind of time to start putting everything all together, so I do need to make sure all of those splatters are nice and dry because I don't want to be smudging anything at this point after the effort that I've put in. I am going to fussy cut out those two flowers, so at the moment I have just fussy cut around the outside, but the reason that I cut two of the peonies is because I wanted to have them layered up. Now I am just going to kind of pick a random line through the petals here and cut off some of the bottom ones so that I can make the flower look a little bit more dimensional. I went through here and cut my first cut and felt like it wasn't quite what I was looking for, so I come back here and cut off another one of those petals as well, and that definitely was much better in my opinion. So they're exactly the same stamp, but it does give some cool dimension at the end of the card, and you'll be able to see that when I do some of the close-up shots. I always add my 4 bits of double-sided adhesive here. This is just a great way that I can line up cards onto my card base, which is a 110 pound Nina Solar White card base, which I very nearly almost put my card on backwards, but I flipped it around there at the last second. So now I have that adhered down. I'm using some liquid glue to put on the bottom peony, and then I'm going to pop up the top one with some foam tape. Foam squares or fun foam would do exactly the same thing here. Anything that you have is great, and I'm going to line that one up with the top one, and that will be today's card finished. I love this card, and in real life it has a lot of shimmer, and this is definitely one I think I'm going to repeat and make a few of. It would be really nice to sit down one day and just do all of the watercoloring of the heat embossed images. So I think that's something I would enjoy. I hope you guys enjoyed this card too. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you so much. See you later. Bye.